All right, so Florida swamp creature and alleged child sex trafficker Congressman Matthew Gaetz went on a conservative radio show. In fact, I think this might actually be his radio show called Firebrand, but he basically was coming out with one of the oldest and dumbest Republican classics that we have been seeing throughout the entire course of this pandemic. Basically, as you were about to see, just trying to claim that people don't actually need to get the vaccine because we have good old Mother Nature. So let's go ahead and hear from Matt Gaetz, and then I'll tell you guys how absolutely stupid and ridiculous this is.
Well, still the best vaccine we've found is Mother Nature's vaccine. It's contracting the virus. That is what has provided the greatest protection, the most durable protection over the longest period of time.
Okay, so again, just verifiably wrong, inaccurate misinformation that he's putting out there, okay? I know what he's talking about or what he's referencing when he's trying to make a comparison between what you get in terms of natural immunity versus the immunity that you get from the vaccines. And listen, nobody ever claimed that the vaccines were 100% effective at preventing you from getting COVID in the first place. What they are largely effective at doing is preventing you from ending up in the hospital or dying. And that is conveniently what Matt Gaetz doesn't mention at all in this clip. Because yes, there is some data that shows that both natural immunity and the vaccine immunity are somewhat comparable. You see here just one example from the Washington Post. CDC finds immunity from vaccines is more consistent than from infection, but both last at least 6 months. So there is some comparison here, but what he and other people who use this talking point will never tell you is that in virtually all of the studies that have come out that compare or draw an equivalence between natural immunity and the immunity from the vaccines, all of these studies also say at the end of these conclusions, not that you shouldn't get vaccinated, but that you should get vaccinated because it's actually vaccine plus immunity from getting COVID itself that is the strongest protection, okay? So in no world, in no realistic interpretation of the science or the data, could you come to the conclusion that you should only get COVID and not get the vaccine, because even in a world where natural immunity and vaccine immunity are comparable, having both of them is still infinitely superior. So again, there's no argument here against getting the vaccine regardless. But one of the main things that he just completely forgets or ignores in this, anti-vax sentiment is hospitalization and death. Okay, I'll just give you one local example, but this is something that can be extrapolated across the entire country. But here in my home state of Georgia, in my city, Atlanta, you see here, Metro Atlanta Hospital System says 95% of people on ventilators with COVID-19 are unvaccinated. Okay, this has been the case since the vaccines came out and we had a large subset of our population starting to get vaccinated. This has been very consistent. Almost everybody that is ending up in the hospital, almost everybody that is ending up dying from COVID is unvaccinated. That's it. That's all you have to know that not only are the vaccines more effective than just, natural immunity, but the thing that they never point out is that people are dying from this, okay? Unvaccinated people are dying in large amounts. And so they'll appeal to these studies that are completely inadequate data sets, basically, where they'll point to studies and say, look, if you have X person who got COVID, survived it, and now has natural immunity, that's comparable to somebody who got the vaccine and now has immunity. And those types of immunity, you can compare those. Well, yeah, you can compare those people, but what's the through line there that is the comparison with these two examples? They're both alive, okay? And so when you take data sets of people who have survived COVID and now have immunity, and then people who got the vaccine and have immunity from the vaccine, well, you're completely ignoring the large group of people that didn't fucking survive COVID in the first place. And guess what? That group of people are unvaccinated. So again, all of these different data points that they churn up in these moments to try to argue against the vaccines are not only just incomplete, but misinforming people. Because yeah, you can go out there and say, I have a 90-something% chance of surviving COVID, especially if you're a young person like me or something. But at the end of the day, the overwhelming majority of people who are ending up dying from this are unvaccinated. So if everybody goes out and decides to take the strategy that Matt Gaetz is trying to get everybody to deploy here, then our hospital systems are going to collapse and you're going to have way more excess deaths than would have been necessary if everybody had just gotten vaccinated in the first place. So it's complete nonsense. But again, just to give you another anecdotal example, well, it's not even anecdotal, but just here from specifically Texas, unvaccinated Texans are 40 times as likely to die from COVID as those who are fully vaccinated in 2021. 40 times, Matt Gaetz. Okay, so again, this is really simple. Like, I don't even really have anything else to add on to this because it's just completely stupid and verifiably wrong at face value. All you have to do is look at data points like this, okay? 40 times more likely to die from COVID than vaccinated individuals, okay? So he's advertising to people to not get vaccinated so that they can go get natural immunity, completely ignoring the fact that, yes, if you get COVID and you might have, permanent lifelong illnesses because of that, but if you get COVID and survive, you might have immunity that's comparable to the vaccine. But guess what? A lot of you motherfuckers, if you listen to an idiot like Matt Gaetz, are not going to survive.